Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Chupacabra's Lair coverage of E3 2014, and in this video we're going to be talking about Middle-earth, the Shadow of Mordor. And this game takes place within the non-canonical storylines that sort of fill in the blanks between the different stories of The Lord of the Rings, namely between the stories of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings themselves. And you yourself are a ranger named Talion, and you are tasked with defending the Black Gates against the forces of Mordor. And at this stage in the storyline, you are but a token force and probably nothing more. And you find yourself overrun by the orcs and slain in the course of combat. Yet you find that you have awoken from your death thralls with newfound powers and abilities very akin to those of the Wraiths, and you must take your newfound abilities and go back within the ranks of the Orcish Horde and find out what Sauron is up to and see if you can't do something to stop that. So, Phobian, what can you tell me about the sort of storyline that this is taking place in and the Wraiths?
Alright, so what they're doing is they're basically trying to give us a look at what happened before the orcs invaded Middle-earth. And I like this, I like what they're doing, because they're bringing Wraiths into it, and I've always liked Wraiths in Lord of the Rings lore, especially when I played Battle for Middle-earth, the Tales of Angmar, which they introduced a character named Karsh, as he was a Wraith assassin. And I've always loved the way the Wraiths work, and to put them into a ranger, and to kind of allow him to fight between the two is going to be very interesting to see. But what you don't know is how these characters could work in the movies and to the actual canon lore, as we know that this is not a canon game, but some of these characters you'll probably recognize, and some of these characters you'll know from other games that you've played, and I hope that Monolith will do a good job with it.
Right, and one thing that's very apparent is this game plays a lot like Assassin's Creed, and something a lot of people have complained about, but I'm really happy about that in a couple of different ways. The first is that while they have a lot of signatures that a lot of different stealthy games have, like this sort of active sonar ability that lets you see where all your enemies are and get like a heads up of different usable items in the area. In this case, you go into this ethereal wraith mode and you can get an overview of the orcs. At the same time, when you sort of break into the mechanics, you start to see, as the game moves along, where they're trying to break from this mold and add a more dynamic, more cause and effect based choice system to the game. And by this I mean, in the game, they're offering you the ability to sort of shape the storyline. If you leave this particular orc alive at the end of a battle because you just simply don't care, he could come back even later down the road as a lieutenant or maybe some sort of weird captain who's a lot more powerful, has sort of beefed himself up and remembers you and is now one of your greatest dangers and nemesises. So it should be interesting to see how they sort of take that to shape the storyline and give you different endings depending on your playstyle. But at the same time, I'm really reticent and kind of wary about that sort of gameplay mechanic because I've been really unhappy with different endings that I've been given for games when I play as evil, most notably Dishonored. Dishonored is a game where a disenfranchised royal guard becomes an assassin and tries to regain his honor by killing off those that killed the queen. A very admirable effort, to say the least. However, if you just bloodily and horrendously murder those that murdered the queen, you are labeled as a horrendous individual and it turns the princess wretchedly evil. And, while amusing, is a little bit too generic and easy, and I gotta say, if you're an assassin brutally murdering evil people, I'm gonna give you the 2 thumbs up. You're a pretty swell chap. So I'll be interested in seeing if they can sort of give me a more reasonable and more original storyline endings for my choices in the game than I would otherwise see from different games so far. And they're also offering you a system of upgrades in the game to sort of play your way. And I'm someone who really likes magic, and we're playing as a ring wraith. For whatever reason, we've awoken with these powers, and I want to exploit them to my greatest potential. And so the one thing I can say is, if you're going to go and add magic into this game, do not shortchange me with these sort of dinky, sort of stealthy abilities that's just about skulking in the shadows and not doing anything deadly. I want to be able to lay waste to these orcs in a really weird, sort of hellish, demonic manner, if I so choose to go after upgrading my Ring Wraith abilities over, say, sort of assassin-y, sneaking around stealth mechanics, or combat with swords and daggers and bows and such. But it should be interesting to see how they use all of this to sort of mismesh with the cause and effect system to give us a unique, non-canonical storyline that fills in the gaps between the stories of The Lord of the Ring.
Oh, just going back to what you're saying, you know, how you have the ranger, and you have the picture of a ranger is the bow-wielding, sword-slashing, quick slicing through every single one of the enemies. Then you have a Wraith, and while some people think of Wraiths as simple assassins as well, you know, when you see a Ring Wraith in Lord of the Rings, you don't want to mess with that guy. You don't know what he's going to do, and I'm afraid that they're going to try and just put the Wraith abilities as to more interrogative role, and trying to just, like, manipulate more than to just destroy. It would be interesting to kind of combine those two elements to where instead of doing the story as an assassin, do it as more of a commander and actually openly
I think what you're trying to go after is, you're looking at something that I'm really hoping for with this game is, as a Ring Wraith, your primary set of abilities are to subjugate and to control the Orcish Horde that Sauron has brought forth against Middle-earth. And so, in that set of abilities, you sort of have the ability to compel different orcs to join your cause, and it would be interesting to see if you could gather up a merry band of subversives to sabotage different orc camps, along with assassinating and undermining the orc high command, and then add that into the whole hierarchy of how the gameplay works. Because it's one thing to work alone as a lone assassin, and we've already seen a lot of that in games like Assassin's Creed, but it would be more interesting to see this ragtag group of subjugants sort of roll in and start to just trash all manner of weapon in the camp, so they start to misfire and malfunction, along with killing different high-ranking officials and maybe murdering a few lower-ranking critical units that make the whole army run and function. And that's something that we see a lot in the Ring Wraiths themselves. They are Sauron's lieutenants. They are his avatars of war. They lead the pack. And with their powers, why couldn't you? And especially with their ability to sort of ride out in the battlefield and lay waste to humanity. Why not to lay waste to the Orcish Horde? So, we're definitely going to be in for a treat with the different sort of gameplay mechanics that the Shadow of Mordor has to offer, but we obviously have a few things that we're sort of hung up on yet, and we're expect to see a really good set of answers from Monolith. So, I've been your host, Larry the Chupacabra, along with my friend, Mr. Phobian, for the E3 2014 coverage via the Chupacabra's Lair. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will catch you next time. Toodaloo!